the late 90s, Hollywood was obsessed with one question. What if an asteroid was hurtling toward Earth? But while most remember Armageddon with Bruce Willis and his space cowboys, it was actually Deep Impact that hit theaters first and delivered something surprisingly different. This wasn't just about explosions and heroics. Director Mimi Leder gave us something we rarely see in disaster films: genuine emotional stakes. When teenage astronomer Leo Biederman spots an unusual object in the night sky, he unknowingly discovers a comet on collision course with Earth. What follows isn't just special effects spectacle, but a deeply human story about how different people face the end. From T. Leone's journalist seeking reconciliation with her father, to Robert Duvall's veteran astronaut leading a desperate mission, Deep Impact showed us that apocalypse films could have heart. While Armageddon dominated the box office conversation that summer, Deep Impact quietly pioneered a more thoughtful approach to disaster storytelling that influenced everything from The Day After Tomorrow to Don't Look Up. It wasn't just about if we would survive, but how we would face our final moments that mattered. Deep Impact weaves multiple human stories against the backdrop of impending cosmic catastrophe. The film opens with high school astronomer Leo Biederman, Elijah Wood, discovering an unusual object in the night sky during a club outing. His observation is sent to Dr. Marcus Wolf, who realizes with horror that it's a massive comet on collision course with Earth. Before he can alert authorities, Wolf dies in a car accident while racing down a mountain road. A year later, MSNBC reporter Jenny Lerner, Téa Leoni, investigates what she believes is a political scandal involving someone named Ellie, only to discover it's actually ELE, extinction level event. Her reporting forces President Tom Beck, Morgan Freeman, to announce the truth to the world. A comet large enough to trigger mass extinction will hit Earth in 1 year. The government's plan unfolds on two fronts. First, Project Messiah, a spacecraft carrying nuclear weapons designed to deflect or destroy the comet, led by veteran astronaut Spurgeon, Fish, Tanner, Robert Duvall. Second, a massive underground ark in limestone caves to preserve 800,000 selected Americans through a national lottery, along with samples of every species, seeds, and cultural artifacts. As the mission encounters setbacks, the comet splits into two pieces, one small, the Biederman fragment, and one massive, Wolf. The smaller fragment will create devastating tsunamis across the Atlantic, while the larger one threatens humanity's survival. What distinguishes Deep Impact from other disaster films is its focus on how different characters face this apocalyptic scenario. Leo trying desperately to save his girlfriend Sarah's family, Jenny reconciling with her estranged father, astronaut Tanner finding purpose in a likely suicide mission, and President Beck grappling with impossible choices while trying to maintain social order as panic spreads. When the first fragment strikes the Atlantic, we witness terrifying tsunamis obliterating coastal cities. The final act centers on the crew's sacrificial mission to destroy the larger fragment, forcing viewers to contemplate not just spectacular destruction, but profound questions about what matters most when facing extinction. Deep Impact emerged during Hollywood's renewed fascination with large-scale disaster films in the late 1990s. The project originated from a screenplay by Bruce Joel Rubin, Ghost, and Michael Tolkin, The Player, with Steven Spielberg's DreamWorks partnering with Paramount Pictures to bring the cosmic catastrophe to life. Unlike many disaster films of the era, DreamWorks deliberately chose director Mimi Leder, fresh off her success with The Peacemaker, to provide a more emotionally grounded approach to the apocalyptic scenario. The production secured an impressive ensemble cast, balancing established veterans with rising talent. Morgan Freeman was specifically chosen for his gravitas as President Beck, bringing a reassuring presence during scenes of national crisis. Robert Duvall added dramatic weight as the experienced astronaut, while Téa Leoni and Elijah Wood represented the civilian perspective. The casting of Freeman was particularly noteworthy as one of Hollywood's first depictions of a black U.S. president in a major studio film, predating real-world events by more than a decade. The filmmakers prioritized scientific plausibility, consulting with astronomers and NASA scientists to develop realistic comet behavior and space mission protocols. Industrial Light and Magic created groundbreaking visual effects for the comet and its devastating impact, including the memorable tsunami sequence that required innovative water simulation. Brugger's technology. The $80 million budget was substantial for 1998, allowing for both impressive effects work and location shooting across Virginia, New York, and Washington, D.C. What distinguished the production was its determined focus on character development alongside spectacle. While creating awe-inspiring destruction, Leder insisted on maintaining intimate human moments throughout, a creative decision that set Deep Impact apart from its more action-oriented competitor, Armageddon, which began development later, but rushed to theaters just 2 months after Deep Impact's release. This rivalry between two asteroid disaster films became one of Hollywood's most famous examples of twin films, similar concepts reaching theaters in close succession. Deep Impact's production demanded cutting-edge visual effects to convincingly portray a comet's destruction of Earth. Industrial Light and Magic, ILM, spearheaded the effects work, developing new techniques to render realistic comet impacts and the massive tsunamis that followed. The team created a groundbreaking water simulation system specifically for the famous wave sequence that devastates New York City, a technical achievement that influenced disaster films for years to come. Director Mimi Leder worked with scientific advisors throughout production to ensure astronomical accuracy. The production team consulted with NASA scientists and astronomers to create a plausible comet appearance, trajectory, and impact effects. This commitment to realism extended to the spacecraft design and mission protocols, with the Messiah spacecraft incorporating genuine space shuttle components and realistic nuclear delivery systems. Filming took place across multiple locations, with Washington, D.C. scenes shot on actual government properties whenever possible. The production secured unprecedented access to film in locations like the National Mall, adding authenticity to the presidential addresses. For the coastal evacuation sequences, the team filmed in Virginia Beach and coordinated hundreds of extras to create the chaotic exodus scenes. One of the production's greatest challenges was balancing the spectacular destruction with intimate character moments. Leder's background in television drama, particularly on ER, influenced her approach as she insisted on shooting emotional scenes with handheld cameras to maintain an intimate, documentary-like quality amidst the larger spectacle. This technique became particularly evident in the beach farewell sequence between Téa Leoni and Maximilian Schell, shot at sunset in a single take to capture genuine emotion. The production faced immense time pressure when they learned Touchstone Pictures was developing Armageddon simultaneously. This prompted Paramount and DreamWorks to accelerate post-production to ensure Deep Impact would reach theaters first, resulting in some round-the-clock effects work in the final months before release. Deep Impact launched into theaters on May 8, 1998, earning a stellar $41.2 million on its opening weekend, briefly holding the record for the highest-grossing non-sequel opening weekend. The film maintained impressive momentum throughout its theatrical run, ultimately collecting $140.5 million domestically and an additional $209 million internationally, for a worldwide total of $349.5 million against its $80 million production budget. What makes these numbers particularly notable was the film's head-to-head battle with Armageddon, which arrived in theaters just 8 weeks later. While Michael Bay's more action-oriented asteroid film eventually outperformed Deep Impact domestically, $201.6 million. The competition created one of Hollywood's most famous twin film phenomena. Two projects with remarkably similar premises released in close proximity. Deep Impact's financial success demonstrated the commercial viability of disaster films with emotional depth. Notably, the film performed exceptionally well with female audiences, unusual for the disaster genre at the time, with exit polling showing significantly higher female attendance compared to typical effects-driven blockbusters. This demographic spread helped maintain the film's staying power throughout the competitive summer season. The film's strong international performance, 60% of its total gross, highlighted the global appeal of its universal themes and diverse cast. Japan proved particularly receptive, where the film generated nearly $32 million. This worldwide success cemented Deep Impact as a genuine financial hit, proving that Mimi Leder's more contemplative approach to apocalyptic storytelling could find substantial commercial success, even while competing directly against a more explosion-heavy alternative. Deep Impact received a mixed but ultimately favorable critical response upon release. Critics praised its more thoughtful approach to disaster storytelling, with many appreciating the emotional core that director Mimi Leder brought to the apocalyptic scenario. Roger Ebert gave the film 3.5 out of 4 stars, highlighting how it surprised me by giving priority to the characters over the special effects. The film earned particular acclaim for its stellar cast. Morgan Freeman's performance as President Beck was widely praised for bringing gravitas and believability to the role. Robert Duvall's veteran astronaut similarly received positive attention for bringing emotional depth to what could have been a stock character. Critical reactions to Téa Leoni were more divided, though many recognized the raw vulnerability she brought to her character's emotional reconciliation scenes. In comparison to Armageddon, which followed 2 months later, Deep Impact was generally considered the more scientifically accurate and emotionally mature film. While Michael Bay's asteroid blockbuster became more entrenched in popular culture, critics generally favored Deep Impact's less bombastic approach to similar material. Over time, critical assessment of Deep Impact has strengthened. Modern retrospectives often highlight its groundbreaking visual effects, particularly the New York tsunami sequence, while appreciating its willingness to confront mortality and human relationships in the face of extinction. The film has been increasingly recognized for its early diversity in casting, particularly with Morgan Freeman's presidential role and the prominent positions held by female characters, both in governance and in the scientific mission. Cultural impact and legacy. Deep Impact's influence extends far beyond its box office performance, establishing a template for disaster films that prioritize human emotion alongside spectacle. The film pioneered several elements that would become standard in the genre. Unlike many disaster films of its era, Deep Impact portrayed government officials responding competently to crisis, creating a rare positive portrayal of emergency management and leadership in apocalyptic scenarios. This approach influenced later films like Contagion and The Martian, which similarly depicted scientists and officials working methodically through existential threats. The film's diverse casting also proved influential, particularly Morgan Freeman's portrayal of President Beck. His performance helped normalize the concept of a black president in American popular culture years before Barack Obama's election, with some cultural commentators noting the role helped reshape public perception of presidential imagery. Deep Impact's emotional farewell scenes, particularly the beach sequence where parents sacrifice themselves while ensuring their child's survival, created a template for how disaster films could integrate profound human moments amidst destruction. This scene is frequently cited in film studies as an example of effective emotional storytelling in effects-driven blockbusters. The scientific accuracy of the film earned praise from the astronomical community, with Neil deGrasse Tyson frequently referencing it as one of Hollywood's better attempts at depicting cosmic threats realistically. This commitment to science influenced later films like Interstellar and The Martian, which similarly prioritize scientific plausibility. When compared to contemporary disaster films, Deep Impact stands out for its willingness to confront mortality directly. While most disaster films conclude with humanity triumphant, Deep Impact dared to show partial victory at best, acknowledging that even our best efforts might only save a fraction of humanity, a thematic approach that resurfaces in modern climate disaster narratives. Nearly 3 decades later, Deep Impact stands as a testament to what disaster films can achieve when they balance spectacle with substance. While Armageddon may have generated more cultural memes, Deep Impact's more contemplative approach has aged remarkably well. Its realistic portrayal of government response and scientific procedure feels increasingly relevant in an era of climate anxiety and pandemic planning. The film's most enduring legacy may be its emphasis on human connection in the face of catastrophe. Unlike many disaster films that focus primarily on heroic individuals saving the day, Deep Impact dared to ask, how would we spend our final moments if we knew they were coming? This question resonates even more powerfully today as we grapple with existential threats from climate change to nuclear proliferation. Deep Impact reminds us that even in our most spectacular genre films, it's the human moments that truly resonate. The reconciliations, the sacrifices, the quiet dignity in facing the unthinkable. In an age where CGI destruction has become commonplace, this emotional authenticity feels more valuable than ever. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the 90s most thoughtful disaster epics, hit that subscribe button for more analysis of films that shaped our cultural landscape. Share your favorite disaster movie moments in the comments below, and let me know which overlooked 90s classic you'd like me to cover next. Until the next cosmic catastrophe hits theaters, I'll see you in the next video.